the blessed month of fasting.
One of the contemporary questions is, why do Muslims fast?
Islam is at once a religion and a civilization and social order based upon the revealed principles of religion. It's an archetypal reality, residing eternally in the divine intellect. Islam cannot be reduced to a historical phenomenon. Why? Of course, because its immutable principles and sacred forms are of a non-temporal nature. Yet it's also a historical reality of dazzling dimensions.
Moreover, the Islamic traditions cannot be confined solely to the message which was received in the form of the Holy Quran by the blessed Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, more than 14 centuries ago, although of course this message has been and will always be the heart of all that is Islamic. The Holy Quran and Hadith, as well as the oral instructions, the grace of Barakah, issuing from the revelation of the Holy Quran and its recipient, the Blessed Prophet, are like the root and trunk of the tree of the Islamic tradition.
As to the question, why do Muslims fast, we can say that certain truths are by nature evident. They need not be discussed in normal circumstances. But in a day and age when the most evident truths are shrouded by the clouds of doubts and questions, one is forced to discuss the most obvious of them.
One such truth is the necessity of ascetic element in human life. Without an element of self-denial, no religion and therefore no human culture is possible. One must withdraw occasionally from the full life of the senses, even in order to be able to enjoy the fruit of sensual perceptions. As a certain saying affirms, it is the empty space of the wheel which makes the wheel. It is only a certain degree of restraint from the material objects of the senses that makes the life of the senses balanced, not to speak of making possible an opening in the human soul for the spiritual life.
One such practice of restraint is fasting. Fasting is promulgated in Islam as obligatory for the month of Ramadan and recommended for other periods of the year. As the Holy Quran asserts, it's a practice which existed in older religions. In Islam, it was only revived and institutionalized in the form of the fasting of Ramadan.
Fasting during the month of Ramadan possesses, of course, many social and external benefits. It has features which have been discussed briefly in some previous episodes of this program. Some of these features were even overemphasized, where the chief virtue of fasting is reduced to charity towards the poor. This element of charity is, of course, there, but like all true charity, it becomes spiritually significant only when it is directed towards God. And in fasting, it is the obeying of the divine will. It has as its fruit charity towards the poor and the needy. It has an actual participation in their hunger and thirst.
But the most difficult aspect of the fast is the edge of the sword of abstention directed to the carnal soul and nafs al-ammara of the Holy Quran. In fasting, the rebellious tendencies of the carnal soul are gradually dampened and pacified through a systematic submission of these tendencies to the divine will. At every moment of hunger, the soul of the Muslim is reminded that it is in order to obey the divine command that the passions of the soul go unheeded. That is also why the fast does not include only food, but also an abstention from every form of lust and carnal passion.
As a result of this systematic restraint, The human soul becomes aware that it is independent of its immediate natural environment. It becomes aware and conscious that it is in this world, but not of it. A person who fasts with complete faith becomes aware very rapidly that he is a pilgrim in this world, that he is created as a creature destined for a goal beyond this material existence. The world about him loses somewhat its materiality. It gains an aspect of vacuity and transparence. This is the case of the contemplative Muslim, leads directly to a contemplation of God in his creation.
The ephemeral and empty nature of things is, moreover, compensated by the appearance of those very things as divine gifts. Food and drink, which are taken for granted throughout the year, reveal themselves during the period of fasting more than ever as gifts of heaven and gain a spiritual significance of a sacramental nature.
To fast is also to wear the armour of purity against passions of the world. It is to incorporate even physically in one's body the purity of death, which is of course coupled with spiritual birth. In fasting, man is reminded that he has chosen the side of God over the world of passions. That is why the Holy Prophet loved fasting so much. It was a basic element of that Mohammedan spiritual poverty, faqr, about which he said, "Spiritual poverty is my glory."
This death of the passions cleanses the human soul and empties it of the putrid water of its negative psychic residues. The individual, and through him the Islamic community, is renovated through his rite and reminded of its moral and spiritual obligations and goals.
That is why the arrival of the blessed month is greeted with joy, for in it the doors of heaven are opened further to the faithful. The divine compassion descends upon those who seek it. To have completed the fast of Ramadan is to have undergone a rejuvenation and a rebirth, which prepares each Muslim to face another year with determination to live and to act according to the divine will.
The fast also bestows a spiritual perfume upon the human soul, whose fragrance can be perceived long after the period of abstinence has come to an end. It provides for the soul a source of energy upon which it feeds throughout the year. The holy month has therefore been called the Blessed One, in which the grace of God flows upon the Islamic community and rejuvenates its deepest sources of life and action.
At the end of Ramadan, there is the festival of Eid al-Fitr, when Muslims gather together to offer a 2-rakat Eid prayer as a token of gratitude and thanksgiving to their Lord for having successfully completed the month of fasting. But it is obligatory on every Muslim, man and woman, to pay futra to the poor for every member of the family, including babies and children, before going to Eid al-Fitr.
Ramadan and the festival of Eid will not benefit Muslims unless first they enable the poor members of the community to have enough money to celebrate the festival. The Holy Messenger, peace be upon him, laid great stress on the payment of futra before the celebration of Eid al-Fitr. He even told his followers that non-payment of this poor due will render their fasting null and void.
In short, the month of fasting has great benefits, social, physical, spiritual and economic benefits for the Muslim community, especially for the poor. It brings the blessing of God in the form of wealth and food into the homes of the poor people.
Suhoor in Ramadan. Islam recommended that the morning meal, suhoor, should be taken as near the break of dawn as possible, although this has not been made compulsory. It is considered as a source of blessing as it helps man to cope with the hardships of fasting.
Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, "Take the morning meal, for that there is blessing in it." This meal alleviates the hardship of fasting, as well as safeguarding against weakness and lethargy. We will go on quoting some of the Prophet's sayings and traditions which elucidate the sublime objectives of fasting.
Muslims were commanded to observe the fasting of Ramadan with full care and without missing any fasting save in case of severe illness or on the grounds of some religious excuses. The Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, observed,
Anyone who misses a single fast during Ramadan, except in case of a severe illness or on the grounds of a religious excuse, cannot make amends for this offence by keeping fasts on all the remaining days of his life. Tirmidhi.
Keep yourself busy in your daily occupation and be active and cheerful in work so as to avoid hypocrisy and false appearance during fasting. Do not show weakness or lethargy in your behavior during the fast.
Make your best efforts to avoid all forms of evil during the fast, because the very objective of fast is to purge the life of man of all evil and to make it righteous. The Holy Prophet has affirmed,
Fast serves as a shield. When any of you is in a state of fasting, he should take care not to utter any evil speech by his tongue or to start an affray. In case someone starts riling him or is inclined to start a fight with him, the man who is fasting should reflect that he is in a state of fasting. How can he reciprocate with an offensive language? Bukhari Muslim.
Covet the great reward for fasting as reported in the traditions. Offer a prayer too, and especially near the hour of iftar, the breaking of the fast. O God, be gracious to accept my fast, and grant me that favour and reward which you have promised. The Holy Prophet affirmed, those who observe fasting will enter paradise through a special gateway. The name of this gate is Riyyan. When the entire number of all those who observe fasting have gone in, the gate will be closed, and no one will be allowed to enter it afterwards. Bukhari.
The Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, also observed, on the day of judgment, fasting will intercede with God and say, O Creator, I restrain this man from eating and drinking and taking other pleasures during the day. O God, be gracious to accept my intercession on behalf of this man, and God shall grant his petition. Mishtaq.
In addition, the Prophet of God observed, any prayer which a fasting person offers at the hour of iftar, that is, the breaking of the fast, is granted and is never refused. Tirmidhi.
Bear the hardships of the fast as good cheer. Do not degrade the sanctity of the fast by complaining of the pangs of hunger or thirst or weakness.
If you are unable to observe the fast during a journey or because of a severe illness, you can forego it, but atone for it on other days. The Holy Quran affirms, "But whosoever among you is sick or on a journey, he is required to observe fasting instead of those days, the same number of other days."
Anas reports, on occasion when we went on journeys with the Holy Prophet, some of the companions observed fast and others did not. However, neither those who had kept fasting criticized those who had missed the fast, nor the latter objected to the fasting of the former. Bukhari.
Avoid backbiting and casting an evil eye during the fast. The Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, has observed, "The person who keeps fast is in fact offering devotion to God from morning until evening, unless, of course, he backbites against someone. When he indulges in backbiting, his fast is broken." Al-Dailami.
Earn a lawful living. No devotion of the body fed illicit earnings is admissible. The Holy Prophet has affirmed, the body fed on illicit earnings is a proper fuel for hellfire. Bukhari.
Furthermore, the Holy Prophet observed, "Take some rest at noon and get some ease in the night prayers. Eat suhoor meal to obtain nourishment during fasting in the daytime." Ibn Majah.
Sahih Muslim records, the Holy Prophet observed, the only difference between our fasting and the fasting observed by the people of the book is that we begin the fast by eating the suhoor meal.
Do not delay in ending the fast after sunset, for the main objective of fasting is to inculcate the spirit of submission rather than abstinence from food and drink. The Holy Prophet affirmed, "The Muslims will remain in a good condition if they hasten the breaking of fasting, and the iftar, which is the meal taken at sunset, to end the fast." Bukhari.
The following prayer is recommended at the time of breaking the fast. O Allah, it's for Thee that I observed fasting, and it's with Thine blessing that I break it.
The following prayer is said after ending the fast. "No more was the thirst moistened where the veins and reward became due, if the Lord so willed."
The following prayer is said when breaking the fast and is performed at the house of someone else. May it please God that the fasting people may perform iftar at your house, and pious people may enjoy the hospitality of food provided by you. May the angels invoke blessings upon you by their prayers.
Do arrange iftar parties. This act entails a high reward. The Prophet of God has observed,
Any man who supplies meals to a fasting person to perform iftar, God shall pardon his sins and reward for this act and grant him salvation from hellfire. The man who supplies a meal for iftar to a fasting person will receive an equal reward with him. The reward of the fasting person will not, however, be entailed.
The people submitted, "O Prophet of God, where shall all of us find the wherewithal to make provisions for the iftar of a fasting person and to feed him?"
The Holy Prophet observed, it is enough to feed a fasting person at iftar with a date or some quantity of milk, or even supply him with a single draught of water for iftar.
Fast is 1/4 of faith. As the Prophet said, fast is half of patience, and patience is half of faith. Of all the regulations of religion, fast keeps a special connection with God. The Prophet said, God says every good action except fast will be rewarded from 10 to 700-fold. Fasting is only for my sake, and it is He who will reward him for him. God says, those who are patient will be given rewards without measure.
Fasting is half of patience. Its reward transcends account. The excellence of fasting is known from the following hadith. The Prophet said, by one in whose hand there is my life, the fragrance of the mouth of a fasting man is dearer to God than the fragrance of musk. God says, the fasting man gives up food and drink and other pleasures of life for my sake. So fasting is kept only for my sake, and it is I who will reward him for it.
The Prophet said, everything has got a gateway. Fast is the gateway of worship. When the month of Ramadan comes, the gates of paradise are opened and the gates of hell are shut. The devils are put in chains, and a proclaimer proclaims, O seeker of good, advance. O seeker of evil, come back. God says, eat and drink cheerfully for what you have missed in past days. In other words, eat and drink cheerfully for what you were deprived of in your fasting days. The Prophet said, God will make his angels vie with an ascetic, saying, O young men, who have suppressed his passions for my sake, and who has spent his youth for my sake, you are to me like some of the angels.
The Prophet said about a fasting man, God says, O my angels, look to my servant. He has given up his passions, his pleasures, his food and drink for my pleasure. God says, no soul knows what has been kept concealed from him pleasing to his eyes. This is the reward of what they have done.
It has been said regarding the verse that this action was fast as God says. The patient will be given rewards without account. It appears from this that rewards will be open for the fasting man, and they will not be kept for measurement, as it is only for God.
All worships are for God, but the honor of the fast is like that of the Kaaba. Everything in the world has got a speciality. This speciality of fasting is forbearance and sacrifice, and it is the action of the mind and secret from the public eye. But all other actions fall within human eyes. Nobody sees fasting except God, and it is a secret action with sincere patience.
Secondly, it is punishment for the enemy of God, as the way of the devil is passion, and it increases through the help of food and drink. For this reason, the Prophet said, the devil runs through the human body like the circulation of blood. Curb it by hunger. For this reason, the Prophet said to Aisha, knock at the door of paradise. She asked, how? The Prophet said, with hunger, especially when fasting controls the devil, shuts his path, and makes narrow his passage. Then its connection remains with only God. If the enemy of God is controlled, it will be helping God.
The blessed month of fasting.
Stories from Islam.